something's gone wrong. For all our vigilance and battle scars over the Bill of Rights, have we let the flame of freedom's torch grow cold? Because there can be no torch to pass where there's no flame.
Freedom has only one enemy it cannot defeat, and that is negligence. So your presence here, now, today, is an act of reverence. Of all man's works beneath the heavens, none shines brighter than our Constitution. I think Jefferson and Paine, Adams, Madison, Mason, Franklin, I think they're looking down right now at us. I think they understand what we're trying to do, what we strive to do. Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Good evening, everybody. This is Joe Joseph. Welcome to another exciting edition of Freedomlink Radio here on the 9th of January, 2011. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about this evening. Our guest tonight is Scott from Believers Underground. And Scott, of course, you know, he has a show here on the Intel Hub News Network, and I'm very glad to have him on board. Scott, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, very good. Very good. I'm getting a little feedback in the background, so if you can turn it down just a little bit, that would be good. My co-host, Griff, how you doing, buddy?
Right here.
Very good.
Joe, I must tell you, I'm so excited about tonight's show. I went out and bought a new suit, 2 white shirts, and 5 neckties, so I'd look good tonight.
Man, that is fantastic. Let me tell you.
Thank you.
I'm getting some feedback, y'all, and I'm trying to figure it out. Do you have speakers going on there, Scott?
No, I got headphones on.
That is weird.
Is it a lot of feedback, or?
No, I fixed it. I'm good.
Oh, good.
Well, folks, here we are. It's, again, 9 January 2011, and there is some incredibly weird stuff going on in the world today. And I found it fitting to bring Scott on the show, not only because he's also keeping track of things that are going on around the world, and especially in this country, but to get another head in here and to discuss the issues and see if we can come up with something viable. And I guess my question to you, Scott, is what do you make of all the bird kills here?
Well, I think they're skyquakes. I mean, just today you had another airplane go down over there in Iran today. I guess 70-plus people. I started telling people, you know, these airplanes are going to start crashing, man. They're going to drop. The last skyquake that really made notice over at USGS happened in San Diego, and it measured a 4.5 that was felt over a 140 square mile radius. And all they could do is put 4.5 and put a question mark because there was no P wave, no S wave. So it was a quake above ground in the air. Felt by a whole bunch of people. So all these people reported in, and USGS just put a question mark. They didn't know what the heck to make of it.
Yeah, I saw some video of I think it was NASA that had some computer models that showed what a skyquake is, what it looks like, and how it occurs, and it's very viable. Now, Griff, all this stuff has the hallmark, the signature of scalar warfare. Now, before I get into that, I will say that tonight on Alex Jones's radio show, he had Jim Mars on the program, and Jim Mars is a good friend of this show, and he dropped a bomb on there and pretty much said in no uncertain terms that, look, wars these days are fought behind the scenes where you don't really see what's going on. And he says we're in full-scale war right now with China, whether it be the economical war, the war of currencies, Russia and China getting together to dump the dollar, firing missiles off our coast, and us doing the same in the South China Sea. And then I think it was November, all of a sudden that cruise ship just totally goes dead in the water, and it was later found out that the Chinese were testing an EMP missile, and it worked. And what they wanted to do was, let's find out how long it takes the U.S. military to show up. It took 11 hours for the Ronald Reagan to get down to that region. 11 hours. So, I mean, that's plenty of escape time, of course, for them to hightail it and get out of there. But what do you think, Griff? What do you think is going on right now, especially with the birds and...
Well, I know what's going on. It's no thinking about it. I've been saying this for years and years. We've been looking at this stuff going on. It's over 11 years. Maybe we're pushing 12 years, saying essentially the same thing over and over and over. We broke the story on the chemtrails. Nobody listened. I'm still saying the very same thing about that. I haven't changed on anything in the last 11 years. Why would the Ronald Reagan want to go down there, Joe? Just answer that, and then I'll go into the other.
To respond to a broken cruise ship and here's the thing. Cruise ship goes down. First people that are going to respond or should respond is the Coast Guard. First thing. Should be a Coast Guard. So raises a red flag when a carrier goes down there. You understand what I'm saying? Why would the carrier
go down there?
Well, obviously they knew something that we didn't. Because a carrier doesn't normally respond to something like that. As a matter of fact, there's only 12 carriers in the fleet. 12. Okay? And of those, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them deployed at any given time. And then you may have 1 or 2 out doing exercises, and the rest of them are sitting. And you just can't, a carrier just doesn't get up and go and hightail it to wherever they're going in 11 hours because they're stationed in Norfolk. You've got one down in Mayport that's not there right now. It will be as soon as it's set up for a nuclear power carrier, but they don't typically that was a John F. Kennedy that was stationed in Mayport. That's since decommissioned, and until Mayport is set up for a nuclear power carrier, they can't have one. So your two ports are Norfolk, Virginia, San Diego, California. That's where they're located. And ain't no way a carrier's making it there in 11 hours unless that son of a gun was out doing exercises somewhere in and around that area. Now, carriers are fast. People don't realize it. It takes a little bit of time to get them up to speed, but you can get them up to 60, 70 knots. Those things will go through the water like you wouldn't believe. But it's interesting to note that a carrier responded to it.
Yes, it is. You're taking over 5,000 men to respond to one incident.
Cruise ship. Right, to a cruise ship.
And the same government is telling the people there's nothing to worry about with all of these incidents.
Right. Now, I will say this, Griff. There is credence, and there is most certainly shocking evidence on from what Scott's saying about these spacequakes. We're seeing a period of cosmic activity that is we have not seen on this planet in a very long time. And I will say this, that we're seeing a culmination of events, any one of which, and we've said this before, Griff, any one of which can bring everybody to their knees.
Sure. We've been right on everything. I have not retracted anything I've ever said. There is basis for all of it. What's happening out here with the birds just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's plenty of evidence that puts all of it under the scalar umbrella.
Right.
The scalar umbrella. The birds just happened to flew. They done flew. They flew through the scalar fields is what happened. And the booms, I go back and tell everybody again for the umpteenth time for 11 years to Google search mysterious booms, BOOMS. You will find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of incidents reported. All of the stories read the same. The boom rattled across the sky. Houses shook. Everything was shaking. We didn't know what it was. All of the stories read the same way. The police got 100 calls. The government denies knowing anything about it. It's all the same. But that is a manifestation of scalar weaponry. And it's been coming at North America since the early days. Russia started developing the systems in the early 1960s, and they had them operational. They are the most advanced of any of the nations, certainly over the United States, with development of scalar applications, communication systems, Joe. They've got scalar radio systems working that nobody can hear because it's not in the RF spectrum. Now, we happen to know, I won't call names, but you know, I've talked to you about the man that wrote the presentation for President Reagan. He wrote the presentation, and it was given to President Reagan. As far as I know, it was the first major effort to educate and get the federal government from the president down on board with what was happening. Before that, there was a inquiry put out by the former president in back of Reagan to explore and come up with answers to what was happening. They didn't know what was going on. So a small handful of really savvy citizens wrote the information, and one man wrote the presentation, and another man gave it to Reagan, what was going on, and it was scalar. It was scalar weapons, and he laid out all of the possibilities, all of what's coming, what we should be doing, and there was an effort on Reagan's part to proceed, and then the presidents after Reagan dropped the ball. They didn't want to do it, and Obama, God knows what this man is doing. He's a fascist. He's interested in bringing the country down. We're in deep trouble, Joe. We're in the deepest trouble you can imagine. And that war is going on over North America, and it has been going on, accelerating from the 60s. In the middle of the ham bands, there was what was referred to as a woodpecker signal, and it popped up at different places. I remember the one that aggravated me the most was in the middle of the 40-meter band of 7 megacycles, and it sounded like a woodpecker, and it went on 24 hours, 7 days a week. Well, in recent times, we're pretty sure that it was setting up an interference grid over North America for the scalar systems.
It's pretty interesting.
It was part of the scalar warfare against North America, and it's been going on for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, it sure has.
And the administrations won't pick up on it, and they won't run with it. It's the same thing as what's happening down, in my mind, in the Gulf of Mexico. All of the people are sitting on their duffs down there. The government, BP, is lying to them, and they're going to die. And that's the same thing that's happening here over North America.
Amen to that. John King, what do you have to add to this already thrilling, stunning conversation?
Well, I can support Griff's explanation of the booms and scalar, much in the same way as lightning when it strikes. It's not the lightning that strikes the ground or so forth that makes the big boom that you hear. Actually, lightning goes from the ground to the sky, not from the sky to the ground. The incredible sonic boom you hear is due to the fact of the high energy from the atmosphere superheating the air. The air expands, and when it contracts at such a rate. That's the boom that you do hear, and that supports Griff's statement about the mysterious booms being used by scalar. They're superheating the atmosphere through the RF band, and when the atmosphere cools and contracts, that's where you're getting your sonic booms.
Now, Scott, let me ask you this. Why do you think it's just a certain species of birds that have come down? What do you think attributes? How does that happen?
Well, it's not one certain set of species.
Mm-hmm.
These things are happening globally, and they've been happening for years.
Mm-hmm.
We're in post-glacial rebound effect. The latest reports show that it's kind of like you take this ice and you move it another place. It's like a lead weight on a tire. You move it somewhere else, and the tire starts to wobble. Now, the axis of the Earth is moving 60 miles a year towards Russia now. The magnetic field is being disrupted over there off the airports off of Florida. I've just got another report of another airport a little higher up. So now that the magnetic field's being disrupted so heavily, and this is what causes the space quakes. It's a runaway. All the information and reports and documents, they're all on my videos. They're all there. I was talking with two people with biosecurity the other day on the bats. There's been already 1 million bats dead across 5 species, going over 800 miles over the last 30 years. And what's going to happen is this white-nosed fungus, basically, as this climate is changing, because also the cold is leaving those areas, and when that happens is these bats hibernate. So as they're hibernating, they're getting this fungus. Now these bacteria have been around the planet for a long time, way before any of us were here. But what's activating them now is the new changes in the weather in those areas. And these bats are dying. And I'll tell you what, I want people to start thinking out of the box with this thing, because they're sitting back, waiting on their death, trying to figure out how to fight the disease and stuff, and they can't. These bats are going to die during their hibernation. What people need to know is if they see these bats flying out during hibernation times, they're starving to death. They need to eat. And I encourage USGS, if they're listening in right now, I'm going to put up a bit later on this, that they think out of the box and just start taking in mass amounts of bugs into these caves. Because if this thing spreads, then, we're talking about a bug explosion like you would not believe. And they need to start relocating these bats up higher. Now, the 2030 report that was released out of Washington in September of 2008 before the stock market crashed, point blank detailed that everything under the 40th parallel now is considered second world. The World Bank right now controls the whole world. There is no U.S., there is no China, there is no nothing. It's just a World Bank. It's a bunch of spin doctors spinning everybody which way from Sunday. And the whole entire world signed into the ICCP on climate change, all 193 countries. And they know they got a monster of a problem. And they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it. From the chemtrails, radioactive forcing of aerosols, which is a $5 trillion project coming out of the ICCP, and I guess reports and stuff on that too, but this climate is toast, and these bankers are still doing everything the old way, and the old way don't work no more. Are they going to manufacture a war? Yeah, I can see it. But these countries that think they have power and stuff, no, the banks are running it. It's the OTC derivatives con. It's up to $622 trillion now. That's $100,000 for every man, woman, and child on the planet. It's a lie. They got the whole world tied up into bondage for the next 12 years. They're doing whatever they want to do. And Obama was supposed to sign something to regulate these banks. Baloney. They're still fully, totally unregulated. They run the show. Not Obama, not no one. All those guys are just puppets, and they're just a bunch of spin doctors, but they cannot stop what the climate's doing. And you're going to see more and more dead birds. You're going to see more and more dead bats. They got a new fungus or bacteria that's hitting the fishes in the ocean. Last year, we started seeing them come up by the millions off the coast of China, off the coast of South America. Volcanoes have gone up over 340%. When I came onto YouTube, I told everybody, man, they're going to go up 200 to 400% in this time, and they're already up 340%. This Earth's oceans are sinking, and it's expanding this Earth. We're in major trouble, and they're looking at these type of devices. I was talking with some folks over in another country, one of my subs, and I got contacted with this committee, and yeah, they're thinking of blowing up even more volcanoes to try to fight this climate. It's geoengineering at its finest. They're trying to counterbalance and redirect, and I mean, they're throwing everything at the kitchen sink. But back in 1992 at the UNCED Summit, you had Rothschild point blank say, man, ain't nothing going to stop these glaciers from melting. Nothing. And they haven't. You're seeing the CO2 cons. You're seeing all the different cons. They're boxing everybody in. They're squeezing in the public sector. It's a wipeout, man. People better wake up to this climate stuff. Yeah, do they got all these other gizmos and gadgets? Yeah, but it's all just one spin doctor show. The World Bank and the World Trade Commission, and the IMF is part of the World Bank. Everything's being run out of Geneva, Switzerland. As every country in the world now that's signed into that ICCP agreement is being run under NATO. It's called climate security, not climate change, climate security, because this is a threat multiplier. I have a video up on my channel page, the 2030 report, and that report is under national security.
That's fascinating. We have Dr. Brooks Agnew coming on Thursday evening, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, Scott, but he did a lot of research into what is causing these what's causing these Earth changes, and he participated in something called the Horizon Project that did some research into the way the Earth transits the galaxy. Our solar system transits a galaxy, and basically we're in that time frame where we're transiting the galactic plane of the galaxy, and when that happens, we actually come in contact to some very powerful forces exerted by the center of our galaxy, and it's wreaking havoc on the planets, it's wreaking havoc on the sun, and it's wreaking havoc on the Earth. And the one thing that I've come to find out based on all this research is that, what we're going through is cyclical on a cosmic scale. There's nothing special about it. It's just what happens in the grand scheme of things as the Earth transits the solar system, or the galaxy. And I find it extremely interesting, and you're absolutely right. There is nothing they could blow up all the volcanoes in the world. I know that NLE 2011, National Level Exercise 2011 that FEMA and Homeland Security is doing this year. The centerpiece of that is the New Madrid Fault, and that has to do with what happens if there's a giant earthquake at the New Madrid Fault. And it's some very chilling presentations out on YouTube from people who have gotten the presentations from FEMA. And you can download it off of FEMA's site. And it's also, I think, on scribe.com. Folks, anybody that wants to see that, go ahead. I don't have a link for you. I apologize. But if you search it, NLE 2011 on YouTube, you will find this. And it's extremely chilling. So you see that they're planning on and trying to train for a catastrophic event such as the New Madrid fault line going off, or a big earthquake, and what FEMA can do to respond, and how all these people get around to respond. But what's interesting is, and like I said earlier, that what we're dealing with is there is so many dimensions to what we're dealing with. Just like you said, the banks. The banks are the ones that run the show. You're absolutely right. All these guys do are pull the strings of the people in quote-unquote power, or perceived power by the public. And what they don't understand is that life as they know it isn't reality. Not at all. So I find it extremely interesting, and I want What do you think, Scott, is the imminent threat right now?
Climate surpasses everything at this point. They know it, and they're throwing everything at the kitchen sink. They're manipulating the masses behind the scenes. You take this senator that got hit the other day, you know, and now all the things that are going through YouTube on it. Now this congressperson, I mean, that gal that got shot down in Arizona. All right, you know, you've seen all the great false flag stuff's going out.
Man.
She had that dude that shot her on her YouTube page. She only had 2 subs, and he was one of them. And I'm going like, holy smokes! And then to add on to that, all of a sudden that little girl, the 9-year-old that was killed, she was born on 9/11. And I mean, and this thing just keeps giving and giving and giving, and whenever I see something like that, I'm going, okay, you know. And then you know, I did a little research on this dude, and this dude is following what's that guy, Morlock or whatever, you know, and he's you know, doing the new language stuff. You know, it's demonic. It's witchcraft, sorcery, garbage. You know, so you know, you're going to get all these YouTubers jumping on this and trying to make this and that and everything else. Man, they just wiped out all of YouTube's truth movement because they're all going to be focused on that for the next couple of weeks. It's just like WikiLeaks before that, and you know, and I mean, this is just a constant thing, you know. And right. I sit back and I mean, I stay true to the point. This is what's going on.
Right.
And because this is the main thing. They will smoke and mirror the living hell out of you. And I'm going like, wow, you know, come on, guys, you know, don't get caught up in the thing. But, you know, they got to do it. It's interesting stuff, you know, it's fascinating to listen to, but, you know, I really don't have time for it because we're pretty much out of time. We need to start moving. All those people down there by the coast, by the Gulf, they need to move. We need to start getting everybody off these islands. They're going to sink. You know, I mean, what can I say? You know, I'm predicting mega earthquakes around the globe. I've been predicting the volcanic activity. I've been predicting the floodings, the storms. We're going to have massive food shortages. You know, because it's messing up the ocean currents. This is mega cold water going into those currents. So we're looking at potential earthquakes of grand scale off these coasts. You know, the colder it gets, water starts expanding, and it puts a lot of pressure on these coasts and these faults that are in the oceans that
exactly
seem to forget about. But wow, I mean, it's not looking good, and that messes up the jet stream. And that's why where it used to rain, it's not raining, and then it comes back. And this is a continuous adjustment and readjustment because you've got the South Pole losing its water on a pretty big scale. On the west side, near the Ross Ice Shelf, you're losing 24 cubic miles a year now. I mean, this is just, it's setting off major catastrophes. It's setting off this new bacteria in the ocean. So you got the cold water entering into the warm streams, destroying and killing fish. And you got this new bacteria that wasn't operational in those areas, now operational because it's cold. And you got fresh water and salt water. Salt water freezes at 28 degrees, fresh water 32. So now you're getting these mass evaporation events, sending this mega flooding. It wiped out Pakistan. It's wiping out Australia right now. I mean, this is a continuous cycle. It's only getting worse from here. That's all I say. It only gets worse from here.
No, you're absolutely right. And when we come back, folks, we're going to continue our conversation with Scott from Believers Underground. And we'll be taking your questions, your comments, all that and more when we come back. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Stay tuned.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
Well, we're back, folks. Anybody that wants to call in with a question or comment, the number to call, 877-598-8549. That's 877-598-8549. I mean, it just gets hairier and hairier as we dive deeper into the rabbit hole. And one thing that I want to point out, and I'm going to get back to this, the technological side of things right now, and it was like Scott said, there's a lot of things going on that throw up smoke. And there's a lot of things that the powers that be are doing in order to make you not see the big picture. And one of those things that they're doing is, like he said, they're using mind control techniques, using these technologies like HARP, like Scalar. You have to understand that when Tesla developed these weapon systems, and that they're more than weapon systems. You can communicate on them. You can send energy wirelessly with them. You can cure cancer with Scalar technology. It's really, really an amazing thing, and it has so many uses. But one of the things that was just made or brought to my attention was this unclassified document that was put out, dated December 13th, 2006. It's a Freedom of Information Act request that was fulfilled, and it was a letter from or to Mr. Donald Friedman, and it detailed the Department of the Army's work into this type of technology. And it's really scary because what's going on is they're using this technology and setting up these towers all over the world. They're there, and they resonate and at these frequencies that affect your brain waves. And there's more to it than that, because it can also cause fevers. It can cause people to have organ failure or shutdown. I mean, think about it. What happens when you run a fever for too long? And my wife just put up the information in the chat screen. It's a fairly large document, but I'm telling you guys, you want to read that, because for anybody that wants to know what we're talking about, there is an Army document right there that explains it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, folks, please take a look at that and learn for yourself. Now, John King, I haven't heard from you much tonight, so I want to bring you on, and I want to talk a little bit about what happened. You know, we're talking about smoke and mirrors, and what happened with this congressman. You just heard what Scott said. The 9-year-old was born on 9/11. The guy that killed this or tried to kill this congresswoman and ended up killing so many people and injuring so many more was one of her 2 subscribers. And then last but certainly not least, do you notice how many people that he hit or killed? He either injured or killed 18 people with one magazine and a pistol. And mind you, it was an extended magazine, but still, that's stunning accuracy for a 22-year-old. That right there tells you a lot about the type of person that he was. What do you think about that, John?
Well, I think he's a really good shot. And, well, I would like to point out that today is 1/9/11. It could possibly be that this was some type of secret society hit. You know, that those elitists love the numbers, but I don't think so. I think this was just a guy that was out on the fringe, probably unemployed, and just pissed off enough to do something about it. And I'll get into that more with my King's Court.
Oh, very good. And Scott, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think it was a false flag event?
Well, I'll tell you what, here you got a person that's right next to the border of Mexico, which the World Bank bought into hardcore last year, and before it introduced the swine flu, and then moved in there with the World Health Organization, backed by Dato, and now you've got the drug lords who used to be the power, and the World Bank that is the power now. Mexico just went from the frying pan into the fire, and now they're fighting back and forth with each other. This World Bank is some nasty players. If it was just a 22-year-old college student, because he was very pissed off with this college that he was going to. It looked like he was very knowledgeable from all the videos he put up, and I was doing a read to him. And I'm going like, well, but why is he there was only 2 subscribers on her channel, where she had over 187 subscribers, but only 2. I thought, well, maybe she was having an affair or something with him or something, It just, the whole thing stinks, put it that way. And, the truth's always stranger than fiction, so who knows?
Right.
What I would like everyone to do is take your mind off of that and put it back on something with some merit instead of getting caught up in the three-ring circus again. You know, there's a lot of things we can do to successfully save life and make positive suggestions, you know, including to the World Bank. But there's fighting factions within the World Bank itself. These mega rich families have their own little agendas. These governments and everything else, they're just little tinker toys to these people, because this is old money, long-term old money. And these people, they've lost their way, you know. This current banking system is going to collapse and burn like a ton of bricks, because there's no way in hell they're going to keep paying out for all these natural disasters they're going to hit this year. They're going to go from bad to worse, and it gets worse. And they're going to just keep throwing this burden on the taxpayers and everybody else. It ain't going to happen, man. This whole system's going to collapse. So this is why I'm saying, man, they're going to go revert to their old ways and probably stir up some kind of stupid, stinking war again.
Yeah.
I mean, they're running the playbook off of the report that came out of the offices of the World Bank. Robert Zoellick issued this thing. You know, because they use these mega brain think tanks, and the document was called Fragile States Securing Development. And I mean, they ran that protocol by the numbers in Afghanistan, and they knew that there was lithium there, $1 trillion worth of lithium. They know that the climate's messed up. Man, they know that they're going to have to do a lot of battery technology stuff. You know, they got all kinds of things going on behind the scenes that people don't have a clue to. And then, you know, they want to take over Dubai, too, you know, because they went into the oil money, and these are newer rich dudes. And so, they, you know, the Dubai, they didn't have nothing and nothing. You know, they had 10% of the world's real estate. Well, they pulled the rug out under that. But it's the commercial real estate. You know, so they're keeping the numbers depressed, keeping the people out of work, so they can seize and take over Dubai. You know, now they got the world's tallest building and all these other buildings. I mean, these guys got so many stupid money agendas. They're just sick with greed. You know, they found a gold nugget and they don't see nothing else.
Let's go to the phones now. We got Debbie from Richmond. You're live on the air, Debbie.
Hey, guys. Thanks for everything you do and all your hard work.
All right, I appreciate that.
I just want to say that I spend about 4 hours. I'm a former Marine. Hi, Griff.
Hi.
I spend about 4 hours a day keeping up and trying to research as much as I can. And I love your show. I believe Griff is absolutely correct on the scalar weapons with the birds, and I also believe Scott is absolutely correct with the weather changes.
Absolutely.
I think we can't put ourselves in a box and try to interpret it as one thing. They're hitting us with so many crises. There's so many hands here in the pot. You know, the birds, scalar, weather, magnetic fields, positive, negative ions affecting, you know, their flight. They could be cloaking planes, the birds going into it. Methane gas is absolutely correct from the earth changes. And the biological effects, the poisoning with Wheeler dying the day after, all the birds dropping. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There's so many things, and these people are so sharp, and they know what's going on with the climate, but at the same time they have all these wars going on that we don't know about. So everybody's kind of freaking out because they're trying to find one particular thing, and I think there's just so many things.
Exactly right. There is no one thing to focus on.
Yes.
That's the problem, and you have to remain dynamic in your thinking pattern. If you try to think statically about a situation and focus in and hone in on one thing, you're never going to understand the big picture.
And like when I was listening to Scott, you know, explaining everything about the space quakes, which I absolutely agree with him on that. And then I hear Griff, and I hear him, and he's absolutely correct. And then it's like, all right, who's right? But you're both right. And I think if you guys can just get that out and say it could be both, or it is both, then
it most certainly is both. Hands down, no bones about it. It is both.
Oh, you guys are awesome. The other thing I think is just so important, and it's like I have been following, the BP spill since day one.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott also mentions the bacteria from the weather changes. I hope you guys are aware of the bacteria they unleashed in the Gulf by that scientist Venter.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the videos from hundreds of thousands of the bacteria coming out of the tubes in the Gulf to eat carbon, to trillions, to you couldn't even see the water anymore. These white, bugs, they were calling them. I mean, you can look at YouTube and look up Cynthia. That was kind of the name everybody's been given it, Synthia. They unleashed a bacteria that is carbon. It eats all carbon, methane. It also eats steel. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, after they unleashed the Cynthia, whatever, the bacteria, which is part natural and part computers, 2 computer chips that Venter invented. I don't know how he ever did that, but all of a sudden, the Coast Guard, every single day on the video feeds for about 3 weeks, was inspecting all the hulls on all the ships in the Gulf. And then we started noticing, we couldn't believe our eyes, that it looked like there was pits in all the hulls with the live feeds. And these were live feeds from the Coast Guard. And then they started taking things out and putting them in Tampa. So I started thinking, well, if it's going to go from the Gulf, this bacteria, there's no way they can stop this stuff from going into the Gulf Stream and going up the coast. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, they come up with, quote, a mysterious bacteria eating up the Titanic. So people need to be aware of what they unleashed. And I just, last week, I couldn't believe it. See, how the powers that be do this. They feed us these little itsy-bitsy things, and they kind of let us know what's going on.
Sure.
Wall Street Journal, January 7th, microbes mopped up after spill. Bacteria swiftly devoured methane in the Gulf of Mexico, federally funded field study. Within a matter of months, the bacteria completely removed the methane in the Gulf. 200 locations across 38,000 square miles of the Gulf. And this has all this bacteria in it. So I know it's traveling up the coastline. Now the fish, just like the birds, you look at the weather, there's all sorts of things going on with the birds, and with the fish, definitely the weather, getting cold waters from, like Scott was saying, but this bacteria, I'm so upset about it. So please keep your eye out and your ears open and keep that in the back of your mind of this bacteria they have unleashed in the oceans.
Watch the power plants down in Florida. If they go offline, then you know that bacteria is getting into the coolant water.
Okay. All right.
That should be a good indicator.
Yeah. And Griff, I wanted to call this show so much because I'm in Richmond, and the chemtrails, I've never been upset in my entire life about anything than this chemtrail, and you've kept me sane.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for that and keeping the information going on that, because I just pray every day, and I never prayed before, but I pray every day for Mother Earth, because they are just destroying this earth.
Hey, Debbie, one more thing, too. If you have any links to that information, can you email them to us or post them in the chat room if you're on the chat?
I'm not very good at that. But
well,
YouTube, you just look up Cynthia and the guys that have been just like guys like you that stay and watch these live feeds from day one. They've got it. And you'll see it. It's just... the whole ocean's gone, and then you never saw any fish anymore, and who knows what's, they just came out with the chlorophyll in the Gulf. The chlorophyll's disappeared in the Gulf. And what's going to happen when there's no more? I mean, there's trillions of these bacteria. Scott knows that, how they multiply. What are they going to start eating next?
Yeah, you're right. John King, you got something to add there?
Yes, thanks for calling, Deb. Might I suggest, if you find our show entertaining and informative and you like it, take the link, and if you email someone, send a link to the show for the blogtalkradio.com/the Intel Hub to some of the people in your contacts and let your friends know about this show just as well. That is one way that you can help us fight back against the tyranny that is being imposed upon us.
I appreciate that. I've got a business. I've got over 30 clients on the weekends. I mean, I tell them, and they come here and they get upset, but and they say they always know I'm a research freak, and they always ask me questions when things are going. And they go, "What do you think about those birds?" And that's all I need, man. I hit them. I will, start telling them, listen to your show. So. Thank you again, and I listen to you every week, and you keep me sane. Thank you, Scott.
I can't promise all the answers, but we're going to give you the story, and we're not going to fill your boots full of poop and tell you it was fireworks that killed the birds.
Oh God, I know.
If
all right, thanks, guys.
No problem, Debbie. Thank you for the call.
Robin should have been dead. It lives above my porch when my kid put off his fireworks last 4th of July. That robin that had its nest with the 3 little birds' eggs in it when they hatched, I should have had dead robins in that nest. And considering that I had none, well, that tells you that they're filling your boots full of poop.
Of course. So what is this, Griff? What does this mean? Because here we are. We're saying this stuff. We're telling people this is what's happening, and there's no boast about it. What do you think is going to happen with people?
Where do you want me to start?
Well, what do you think is going to happen?
I think we're in terrible trouble, and I think people are going to be eating dirt before too long. Your food supply is going to stop. Your electricity is going to stop. Your water is going to stop. Your cash is going to stop.
There's going to be a lot of dead people out there. That's all I can say.
A lot of dead people. Your welfare checks are going to stop. Riots are going to stop. It would not surprise me at all to have pockets of cannibalism when people got hungry enough, 300 million people with no food, no heat, no nothing coming in, people getting sick, no doctors, no medication, and no prospects of it ever turning around.
How close do you think we are to that, Scott?
I think we're entering into it now. We're in it now. Your inflation and in some cases hyperinflation is popping up in the stores.
Sure.
Now, when it gets too expensive, hyperinflation with food products, or as Bob Chapman said, the food prices will double this year, wouldn't surprise me at all. But the paychecks are not doubling and jobs are being lost. So when people can't eat and can't nourish their families, and sickness increases, and no medication, what do you think those people are going to do?
No, you're absolutely right. Now, Scott, you're traveling the country right now. So what is the condition that you're seeing overall as far as the country is concerned?
Well, having a major background in psychosocial behaviors and running programs for multiple years, the interesting thing I found going from state to state, up into 18 states over the last 200 days, is I'm looking at the psychosocial dynamics of the people. You start crowding in the public sector, you start removing their money sources, their job securities, the breakups of the relationships. It starts putting major pressure psychologically. And, man, you're going to have some more and more incidents of people losing it. They're going to snap, and they're going to snap on whoever they think is at fault. And then it could turn into a martial law scenario, like they're probably going to initiate here. They're already talking about, how are we going to protect our political people? Man, even in politics, man, it's just a banker room. Garbage pit is what I call it. But, man, they don't care. When the banking systems were operating under a focus of, let's keep everything going and keep it all smooth running and everything else. But that all went out the window, man. I mean, it's gone. It's a thing of the past, and you just see con after con after con, and these are global cons. If anyone's thinking, the United States only, man, you're only getting one little piece of the puzzle. This is global.
Right.
And I mean, it just, you had the S&L con in the 70s, the gold pool con. I was working at the United States banks in the 70s. You know, they manipulated the silver, gold prices, the housing market back then. What's changed? Nothing. You know, they did the Enron con. You know, now they're manipulating the oil prices again. You know, and I'll tell you what, there's oil otherwise. They are drilling hand over fist above the 40th parallel. They're going to sink 30,000 rigs in over there in the Philadelphia area and stuff. There's Montana, South Dakota. I mean, they're drilling hand over fist because they know that they've already started taking oil rigs out of the oceans because the ocean floor is sinking. It's pulling these rigs under. You know, I mean, they only care about a certain amount. You know, they call it what is that called? It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm seeing the people squeezed in a box. It's like I'm in Los Angeles today, and it's like slavery. I mean, they build house upon house, which is totally unbiblical. I mean, they're turning these people into locusts. It's like a grasshopper. It gets its metamorphosis when they're squeezed in together and they start rubbing wings so much, and there's not enough food there, and then bam, you know, they turn into locusts. And I'm seeing the same scenarios setting up in these major big cities where they got way too many people in way too small of an area fighting over the same resources. And man, it's not looking good. I do not like it, and I will tell anybody, you know, if you can, start moving away from the big cities, man. When this thing goes down.
Absolutely right, Scott.
Not good.
Folks, when we come back, we'll have more with Scott from Believers Underground. All this and more, King's Court, coming up next. Stay tuned.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. We are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com. You are listening to the Intel Hub News Network, crushing the New World Order piece by piece. Secure your future. Get your non-hybrid seed pack now. With the looming economic crisis, food shortages, and other toxic disasters, now is the time to be ready. Just click on the Heirloom Organics banner at the top of our Blog Talk Radio page today. Secure your future and the future of your family in hard times. Heirloom Organic Seeds.
Join me, Joe Joseph, John King, and A.C. Griffith, Thursdays and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern for Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we're back. We're at the halftime of the show. If you have something to say, a question, or something to chat about, you can call us here toll-free at 1-877-598-8549. And now, without further ado, it's time for King's Court. Now, I'm highly surprised and disappointed to see that many people who would normally rattle the saber quickly condemn the shooter in the Representative Gabrielle Giffords shooting. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish all the best for Congressperson Giffords. I see within mere minutes of the shooting, several accounts on the various social networks quickly say it was MK Ultra or the CIA or Mossad. Now, let me just say bullshit. Yes, those organizations could be considered terrorist organizations, but in my humble opinion, the man was fringe, possibly unstable, but just pissed off enough to do something about it. Now, I don't know Representative Giffords' politics, but the normal communist mouthpieces are quick to blame the right. This coming from the same people who masturbate to orgasm to pictures of Mao and Lenin. These people are the real terrorists. Anyone who is against the Constitution and Bill of Rights and works to bring down this great nation and weaken our rights are the terrorists, not the people. You see, revolution starts from the top down, and it's only a knee-jerk reaction to pressure from above. I did notice that the Communist News Network was quick to have people on talking about Arizona gun laws. One woman said that the Arizona gun laws are lax and need to be made tougher, and that if they were tougher, this may not have happened. Well, lady, the only thing that should have been made tougher, in my opinion, was your daddy's condom. Be it bullets, knives, sticks, or stones, the revolutionaries will find a way. Maybe if our politicians were not so corrupt and as useless as tits on a boar hog, things would be made better, and they would have nothing to fear. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't condone this type of behavior myself. However, I don't condemn it either. And now for the Webbutt Report. This attack is just the spark that lights the flame. Politicians and bankers fear as attacks become commonplace. This shall happen in threes, as there will be 2 more such attacks on high-profile criminals. 2 banks will be exposed for under-the-table dealings, and surprise, surprise, no one goes to jail. See, they give you what is tolerated. If you tolerate it, they will give it to you. Our government is corrupt because it's the people who sit around and do nothing. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That much is true. It is only when people get tired of being afraid will they react. As the water swirls around the king's throne, massive demonstrations start in the U.S. after winter break, and it's down the hole for everyone as the water clears. Joe and Griff, back to you.
Thank you so much, John, for that commentary. Griff, I think John is spot on in the fact that, yeah, the guy's fringe. He's nutty as a fruitcake. And I just, I don't want to put too much credence in it. I really don't. Because we need to focus on what is going on. And also, folks, the major focus right now for everybody should be self and family. It should be self and family. You guys should be in the full throes of getting yourself prepared. I can't stress it enough. If you're not doing it spiritually, physically, mentally, you're in a bad place. That's all I can tell you. What do you think, Riff?
I think all focus should be on self and family right now, going at a very rapid pace. Our time is running out. But the people are not aware of it. They're not listening.
No. Have you noticed that, Scott, in your travels? Have you got a lot of either pushback and or just kind of a numbness, a general numbness? Is that what you're feeling?
On the contrary, if you got all the information and the reports and you can present it in a very strong manner, it even helps when they're chem spraying above you. I'd walk into a church and say one in Michigan and they don't know who you are, and you come in and you sit down, and at the end of the service they're all wondering, who is this guy, and they're all reaching out to shake your hand, and it's like. It's as easy as it gets. Talking about fishers of men. And I go, oh yeah, well, hi, I'm Scott with Believers Underground, and I'm walking the country, and they're going, wow, that's pretty cool, yeah. What do you talk about? And you got them, you just roll them in and go, yeah, here, come on, let's step outside, and you see that up there, that's a $5 trillion project, coming out of the ICCP, and then before I'm done, I got the whole church outside doing church. Because truth is spirit, the Word of God. This truth is in the book,
Right.
He created science, and he told us that all this nonsense and manipulation garbage was going to be happening at this time.
No, absolutely.
So it's a walk in the park. Is there a sense of hopelessness and despair out there? You betcha. The general public don't have a clue. They're not preparing. They're still doing the mad rush during Christmas and this, that, and the other. They want to try to enjoy their life, but man, it's getting harder and harder and harder, and they're getting maxed out on these credit cards and stuff, which is stupid as hell. You just dump them things. They already ripped you off. You might as well just cut them things up, throw them away, and every time they send you a bill, throw it in the trash, because it's a con. I tell them, get yourself a couple rolls of silver dimes, because they're not going to be able to make change. You're going to have a day's wages for a loaf of bread, because your money's going to be worthless. It's already worthless.
Right.
And they don't understand that either, but you keep educating them. Education is power. All right. Knowledge. My children die from lack of knowledge. So, boy, get it, and get as much of it as you can. The knowledge is more precious than gold, silver, rubies, diamonds, everything, because it'll tell you where to go. It'll tell you how to prepare, what you need to do. Like with me, I'm not sitting around getting prepared. I'm out there throwing and getting everyone else prepared. If I have to lay down my life for my Heavenly Father in this fight, then so be it. But I'm doing it in love. And I'm going to look to push as many people out of the way as I can. It's like a little kid in the street. You don't think about running out and pushing out of the way when a car's coming. You just do the right thing. You run out there and push the kid out of the way. If you get hit and it takes you out, so be it. But you do the things, the right things, man. That's the way I was raised. That's how I believe. And man, there's an overwhelming sadness within me, seeing this stuff. But I would get a comment and say, someone would say, thanks, Scott. I go, well, God gets the glory. But they move. They get out of one of these zones and they move above the 40th parallel. And they're getting out of these more areas where they're already going ahead, and they're going to let certain areas just do whatever. It doesn't matter by war or by the climate, whatever. They're just going to let it crash and burn. You know, they don't have millions of FEMA coffins set off all over the U.S. for nothing.
Right.
You know, it's sad and pathetic. But
exactly right, Scott. I mean, look at the signs just in front of us, and what you see. You know, with deep underground military bases, with the FEMA camps, the coffins, the seed vaults, all this kind of stuff. They are planning for something. They're not doing it for nothing. And that's the first thing to go through my mind is that, okay, they just don't do this for no reason. There has to be a reason for it.
You know, that's why I will predict these quakes. I will predict these storms. I will predict these things before they take place, because it's all pressure and weight. If that ain't a light bulb popping on people's heads, they're putting those seat belts. Yeah, they're doing all these things. But the climate doesn't lie. You know, they can't hide that. You know, they could smoke and mirror you on all these other things and get your attention off it. You know, and they could say sea level rise, which is BS. And, you know, like Newmore Island, heck, that thing sank. And the coastline over there didn't go up 1 centimeter. That's a lie. You know, and the nuclear fallout that's in the ice cores, those ice cores are all going to melt. There's nuclear fallout everywhere on this planet. And, you know, and I got all the reports. I put it out there. But now, you know, it's like Texas released this thing. Oh, there's nuclear waste in the drinking water system, and it's been that way, and they've been manipulating the numbers. You know, I put it on a vid the other day. I mean, they're releasing stuff under the 40th parallel. You know, it's called climate migration through the monies. They're forcing people to move through the monies, and then they'll drop reports like this and say, look, there's nuclear fallout and stuff in your water and stuff. But these people are so unknowledgeable that they're just sitting there, placid. You know, just, okay, all right, we'll accept it, you know, and then, you know, oh, who's playing football today? You know?
Sure, of course, that's what they're focused on, because that's what feels good. And the problem isn't, until this thing hits them really hard, I think we're going to continue to see just that absolute disconnection from what's really happening, that they're grabbing on to whatever's left that feels comfortable, because everything else is scary. You know, one thing that I found with my life experience is that people really hate change. They don't like it. It scares them. You know, once you get in your niche, it's comfy, it's cozy, you feel safe. You know, and once that's gone, man, you're talking a lot of upheaval. Can you imagine, Scott, for a second, what would happen if all of a sudden the NFL just went away?
Nothing. Not a thing would happen. You know, people would get over the shock, but it's kind of like if you get thrown in jail and you don't have no cigarettes, okay, well, you know, you rough it out for a couple of days, and then, you know, it is what it is, and people accept that. But yeah, do I see mankind detoxing off their way of life? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I ran recovery homes. You know, the people detox. But it's just a one day at a time thing, man. You know, you just get this way of life that you have right now. Okay, you can change your way of life. You can change the way you were thinking. I've helped thousands and thousands and taught I don't know how many classes on having people change into a new way of life, and then get into a rhythm of that life. You know, practice it for a week and then a month, and then it turns into a way of life. You know, so can people change and detox off of this way of living and turn and change into a new way of living? Absolutely. It's not that big of a deal. You don't make a mountain out of a molehill. You know, you just fire your brain, hire your feet. You start doing something different. You get a different result. You do the same thing, you get the same result. And that's what they're doing, the same thing, and you're getting the same result. And this thing's going to hit them right between the eyes. You know, so
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But they can do it. They can change. They can turn a new way of life. They can learn new skills. They can do this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. I know they can.
Yes, they can. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Lee in Kentucky. Lee, you're live on the air.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you all?
Very good, Lee. Nice to hear from you again.
Well, thank you. I've got a couple questions for you. First, for Scott, I know I live here in Kentucky, and there's a lot of talk about this Mandarin Fault Line. And I guess I got a kind of a two-part question for him on that, and that is, I know it's hard to predict. I know it's almost impossible, but I'm kind of wondering when he thinks maybe this could happen. And then the other thing is, depending on the severity, what kind of range, what kind of radius, as far as from the worst damage to the least, how far out this will go? Maybe I hope he understands what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. You're looking at about a 1,700 square mile radius. And as far as prediction, every day it gets closer and closer. That's when I put up that lights in the sky before a super earthquake video. It's on my site. These lights in the sky that come from the great pressure on the rock have been showing up since 325 BC in Greece. There's numerous documented reports throughout history about the lights in the sky before a super earthquake. That's how I was able to predict that Mexico one 10 days before it hit. They saw them 2 weeks before in San Francisco area before it dropped to 880. The people know what to look for. Listen to nature. She'll tell you. And even if they do it with a machine, okay, it's still the same effect. It has to produce that great pressure on those rocks, and those rocks will give you a clue. You will see a light in the sky. Now, it depends on the matrix of the rock, whether you're going to have a 30-minute warning, an hour warning, or up to a 2-week, period warning. Now, Arkansas is sitting in an area of an ancient caldera. You can have a magma event as well over there. And because of the new infrastructure, the different pathways for the water and stuff, I see the earthquake not hitting New Madrid, but hitting Wichita, Kansas, about 12 miles away from Wichita, Kansas. The fault lines have changed. So you got a different pressure and weight going on. You got new rain patterns going in. You got all this infrastructure. People have to take account for all this stuff, and now the earth is wider. So, things change in nature. She goes where the weight goes. And I've seen that weight shifted over there. Nevertheless, that earthquake is going to be a big earthquake. Depending on how long it lasts is what's going to depend on what kind of severity it's going to have. If it's an 8 that lasts for 2 or 3 minutes, you could be looking at liquefaction of areas, and you could see actual areas sink or get swallowed up. Now, if it's a shorter earthquake, say 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you'll see devastation, major building collapse and failure, because especially most of that area is brick. It's not built for earthquakes. So if you catch the lights in the sky, then, hey, sleep in a tent from there on, or, get the hell out of Dodge and come back after the fact. But always, be prepared, have a wrench by your gas main, try to fill up, have some kind of water filled up, either a bathtub or, I'd rather get you out of the house, man. I don't know how good that area is going to be, but, I would tell people if they can, just keep moving up, get out of those areas if you can, because it's coming, it's coming. All you say, man, it's going to hit. And, horses may be the only way of having transportation to get out of there at that time, because most of the infrastructure is going to be busted to hell. Wherever you see water lines, pulling up with water, because you're going to have pipes break all over the place. Gas lines run parallel with the water lines. Don't think that's a free source of water, because it may just ignite on you. So, avoid those big pools of water after the big earthquakes, or, because these earthquakes can be hitting everywhere around the world. It's we're in a time of tribulation, man. This earth is in trouble. And not only on the banking end, the political end, and every which way from a Sunday, and the psychosocial factors, holy smokes, and then you got to deal with people that were treated punitively when they were growing up. Say they were raped sexually, or they were beat to a pulp because there's so much frustration in the families and because of lack of money or whatever. So these people are going to be highly revengeful and very vicious people once this thing hits, and they will take your reserves or your whatever you're carrying, is dog eat dog, and these guys are your most extreme violent people, just like that guy that whacked that group of folks down in Arizona. You could tell this guy was suffering from extreme punitiveness. So either he was whipped and kicked and beat or sexually molested when he was younger. This is a subconscious character attitude of punitiveness. So you're going to be dealing with factors of the psychological nature as well. So hey, wild animals too. Yeah, go ahead.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting when you talk about the lights in the sky. Even that's a biblical. It's a sign. It's said to be signs. Signs in the heavens. And it's funny you mentioned horses. We've got a few of those here in Kentucky. But I've been trying to do the best I can for about the past 7 or 8 years in preparing. And I've got just a couple more questions I want to ask you. I'm going to hang up and listen. One is, it's talking about the bees and the birds, and I've often wondered about these cell phone towers and their interference with the flight path of the bees. And I don't know what these things are on the highway, all up and down 75, but there can't be that many cell phone towers. There's towers on almost every hilltop, and I don't know what those are, but they're not. They can't be just cell phone towers. And I guess I'm going to close with this. I'd like to ask each one of you, each of the four of you, how long do you think it'll be before the bottom falls out and we wake up to an America that we don't recognize and probably don't want to be a part of? And I'll just say God bless you all and continue and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Lee, and thanks for the call. Well, go ahead and answer him, Scott. I'll let you go first.
Okay. You have to act as if it has already hit, okay? Because it only gets worse from here. To not get that in your mind that, hey, you know what? It's not time to wait till it falls apart. You got to say, hey, you know what? It has. You have to act accordingly. Hey, you know what? It has fallen out. And get that in your mind, because that's just a number. It's just a number of days before that takes place. It doesn't matter if it's 100 days or 1,000 days. It's not an if, it's a when, okay? The ones that make it through this time are the ones that get that in their head right now that, hey, I might as well act accordingly like it happened. And say, oh, wow, it happened, and I still have access to these things, and I could still do these things. I'm very lucky to be in this position to have had this happen and have all these blessings around me so I can do what I can, right now.
Right.
So that's my suggestion on that.
John King, give me an answer.
Well, I could cop out like most other people and not give a date, but I'm going to be very specific. And I think when I commented last time on what I think is going to go on, I think Bob Chapman misunderstood me when I said February 14th. I don't think that the bottom's going to fall out February 14th. That's going to be when the tide starts to turn. There will be a love loss after Valentine's Day here in the United States between politicians, the people, and the bankers. However, come next Thanksgiving, there will be very little to be thankful for. And as far as not recognizing this country, I don't recognize it now.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Now, see, John, I'm going to cop out, and I'm going to say I don't give dates. And the reason why I don't give dates is because I don't know. I just simply don't know. But what I do is I totally and completely agree with Scott in that you have to change the way that you live now. If you haven't done it yet, you have to start doing it. You have to dial back. You have to start saying, what can I do without? And figure out how to make do with less. You know, Griff and I talk about it all the time. One day, go ahead to your main breaker and shut it off and sit down and say, what the heck just happened to me? How do I go about living my life now with no electricity? How do I go about living my life now without any running water? Ask yourself those simple questions and prepare yourself now while you can, so that when this does happen, when it does occur, you're already rolled into that way of life. All you've got to do is just continue on going on. That's it, you know? And that's my thought on it. Now, Griff, what's your answer?
Well, it's upon us now, and it has been for some time. Mm-hmm. For those of you that have not purchased quantities of survival food, you're not going to be able to buy as much today as you could have a year ago. The prices are going up considerably. In some cases, we're going into hyperinflation on some items. Cat food. At Walmart, a 20-pound bag of Iams cat food, dry food, used to cost $20, $25. They've reduced the size of the bag from the 20 pounds to 14 pounds at $25.
Right.
All of the other manufacturers of various animal foods doing the same thing. They're reducing the size and maintaining the same price. I saw a bag of animal food, prescription dog food, for $67 for 20 pounds. And that's what we're seeing that reflected in food prices also, people food prices. But it's in other things too. Another thing I've mentioned repeatedly, the quality of goods coming into the country, nothing like the old American made. So when you purchase underwear or clothing or shoes, you have to buy twice as much to get the same longevity out of the items. The underwear is falling apart because they're cutting back on thread count, and that's happening in other clothes also. You cannot get good clothes anymore. So it's reflected in how much you can buy, how much you can put away. It's upon us now. It's across the board.
Right.
Automobile parts the same way, made in China. Half of them don't fit, and the quality is poor. So you wind up buying twice as much.
You're right. Let me go to phones. We'll take another phone call before we go to break. Let's go to Ron. Ron in Canada, you're live on the air. How's it going, Ron?
Depressing the hell out of me.
Come on, man.
Jesus, boys, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're starting to sound like Alex Jones over here, for God's sakes. The sky is falling. You know, everything that I'm listening to, and I'm a long-time researcher as well, and I'd like to know that church Scott was in, because I've been trying to work with the churches for 4 years now, and you might as well go talk to a rock. I mean, these people are completely sucked into this Gaia worship, Earth Charter crap. I can't find a Christian in the church anymore, so I don't know what church he was at, but this whole thing of, you know, you better prepare. I don't know what you're preparing for. You know, if everything does crash out, which it looks like it might just do, preparing for, you know, so you store yourself 6 months worth of food and some water. You can only store X amount of water. Then what? You know, I'm in Canada. We have our Canadian mafia. You have your American mafia. Unfortunately, both mafias are in our political houses, and they're running roughshod over the people. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why the people are running and hiding. And I do believe that I mean, I went through this in the build-up to the Iraq War. I saw the same thing. Everybody hammering on their keyboards, people putting out videos and whatnot. well, not as much video then because we didn't have the bandwidth, but hammering away on their keyboards. And just like this congresswoman that got shot in Arizona, and I hope everybody's best thoughts are with her and her family and everybody else down there. But always these distractions coming and never finding the target. And I believe that is what's going to take us down. Not the fact that we can't take back our governments, not the fact that we can't walk in and just say you're under arrest. Okay, both the American judicial system and the Canadian judicial system are mafia. They're illegitimate court systems. So why would we put up with them? The people, it was Andrew Jackson or somebody, you do what you have to do. I don't think any of these forefathers of America would be preparing to run and hide. I don't believe they would. In fact, I know they wouldn't.
No, you're right.
Your forefathers would stand ground, and they would do what your Constitution tells you to do, and that is arrest and removal. Why the American people and or the Canadian people and or the British, anybody else, the Australians, would crawl under rocks and hide with some dehydrated food when they live in a rich nation makes no sense. It makes zero sense. Because if you look at what the New World Order's plans are, is the eradication of most of the population on the planet. Okay, that's conspiracy to commit genocide.
Sure it is. Now,
that's
let me
the law. So why would the people run and hide?
Well, let me throw this out at you.
Let me finish this up. I forget what the gentleman's name was. Wasn't Singer. Anyways, whatever his name was that we're basically going to wipe out most of the population on the planet, and only those who pledge to Lucifer will survive. So if you don't stand ground, what they're telling they're going to do is they're going to wipe everybody out, they're spraying this. I live in a little town in the middle of nowhere. They're spraying this snot out of us all the time. Is basically what they're saying is that they wish to reduce the population, and you're either going to come and succumb and bow to their wishes and be their slaves, or you will not exist. So to run away and then end up getting caught somewhere, and then you have to make a decision whether you're going to be a slave or not, doesn't make any sense either. What I see coming here, what I see is the old 1928 movie, which was Metropolis. And what you have there is you have the elite who live on this planet and do very well and enjoy their lives, and those remaining work basically underground, out of sight, to provide for the elite. The only way you're going to stop it is to stop it. You can't stop it by running and hiding and hoping that once all this implosion or whatever takes place that you're going to have this rebirth or this rebuild. It is not going to happen. That's a pipe dream, and that's all that is. The last president of the United States was John F. Kennedy.
I'll agree with you there.
You haven't had one since. You've had traitors in-house ever since, as we have had here in Canada. We don't make anything in either of our countries by design. They've pulled the rug out from us. They're really working on it now, but they've been working on this for a very, very long time.
I agree, Ron. Now let me throw this at you. If that's the case and what you're saying is true, then what you should do is grab your rifle, go up there and go arrest the Canadian Parliament and see how many people get behind you to do it.
Well,
they'll get behind you, but see,
we're working on it.
I understand you're working on it, and there are people here that are working on it too. The fact remains that in any sort of situation, you have to use tactics and employ tactics. And
running and hiding is not a tactic.
Oh, no, but survival tactics. Have you ever heard of survival tactics? Yes, absolutely.
When you go to war, war, and I'm not advocating a war.
Right.
But when you go to war, even in that situation, you are constantly thinking about survival. But you're meeting it head on. You're not running. If you are in a war to save your freedom and or save somebody else's freedom, you don't do it with some dehydrated food.
You can't do it that way. I totally agree with you.
What I'm basically saying, Griff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What I'm basically saying is that we need to change the tune of the radio shows. Okay, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Is that we have got. I mean, I spent 2 years on these radio shows just trying to get Americans and Canadians to get off this stupid right-left crap. They were arguing over the most ridiculous things. You remember that? It was so bad. Pelosi said this. Who gives a damn?
They still do it. They still do it. Yeah.
Oh, they're still doing it?
Oh yeah, all the time. They're doing it like crazy.
No. It's you have to hit a target. You have to concentrate on a target. What is the problem? How are we going to fix the problem? We're not going to fix it by running and hiding. We're going to fix by empowering people. I know how difficult it is. I spent 2 years up here trying to get people to run in local elections. As I see, that's the only place to regain any kind of power. And you couldn't get anybody to run. I mean, it really saddened me to think that I'm a Canadian and the rest of my fellow citizens are, I wouldn't want to get involved in something like that, you know. And these are the very people, when the crush comes, and the government knows how their minds work because they trained their minds. That when this crashes, those people have been trained to go to the government. I mean, they're already trained. What percentage of people in the United States are already on food stamps? That's
quite a bit.
That's
it's like 10%. Yeah.
So how do you wake the dogs up? I don't have an answer. But what I would like to see is I would like to see the radio shows, and I do have the most respect for you and your guys, is to spend more time talking in a much more positive tone that this is our country. You know, we're going to start manufacturing stuff again. We're going to get control. We're going to get rid of this Fed debt. We're going to write it off. We're going to start, just like Kennedy wanted, printing our own money again. I mean, we gave over issuance of our money, which is basically the Fed, to the IMF in 1974. This country's been going in the toilet ever since because they started offshoring us. What's the IMF's job, and the Fed and the World Bank, is to load debt up. And you are born as a debt certificate. They're using the land, which is all this rewilding nonsense, as payment on that debt, which is a phony debt. I mean, it's time we all just stuck to what's bang, 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 and this is how we're going to fix it. Because you know and I know that people's minds get really distracted quickly, just like this congresswoman. As soon as she got shot, I'm not concerned about the shooter. I'm concerned about the health of the people that got shot, of course. But what I'm mostly concerned about is that the minds are going to get distracted again. And every time those minds get distracted, it's the same thing I've been telling people for years: lay off 9/11. Okay, it's not important. Now, when I say it's not important, I don't mean it's not important. It's not important in the fact, don't spend too much time on it, because their train is rolling down the tracks full bore, and you're still back here 10 years after the fact. You can't do anything about 9/11. There's nothing anybody can do about it. There's not a jury or a judicial system in that country that's going to deal with it. But while you're wasting your time thinking and discussing it, their train's long time left the station.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Ron.
So that's my babble for tonight, anyway.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate it. You're always good. You're always good for it. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's good. And I want to tell you this: the power is in the people's hands, whether they realize it or not. They have the power. Take a look at France when they raised the retirement age 2 years. They damn near shut the country down.
No, they should have shut the country down. See,
right.
I'll leave you this one thought, okay? The one thought, and the thought is authority. And I think Scott has dealt with this in some of his videos. I watch his videos. I'm subscribed to him. Everybody go subscribe to Scott's videos.
Yeah,
Don't understand what he's talking about sometimes, but they're good videos.
Thank you. And I'll tell you what, man. God bless you. And I'll tell you what, we're in World War III, 4, and 5 with the climate. To not be prepared is suicide. And yeah, I would encourage everybody who's listening to look into sovereignty and to start getting out of this numbering system, because prisoners wear numbers. Okay, and the more numbers they stick on you, the more hardcore you're a prisoner.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. Griff, you want to respond to Ron's, he calls it babble. I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. What do you have
I would listen, I would have Ron on my side. Ron, I like you. I like your personality. I don't quite understand some of what you said, though. The food is to keep the body functioning. And when the trucks stop, or if the oil stops, or any number of things happen, your food is going to stop. And I don't want to die of starvation. So, and I have no intention of running. If I had any desire, inclination to run anywhere, I wouldn't be on worldwide radio right now, calling the president a fascist. Put a big X on my head. So I'm not running. And the food is just to keep the body going. That's all. When food supplies stop, that's kind of a benign thing. That's not a big deal if you want to keep living.
Right. No, you do have. There is a certain level of preparation that you have to have, just to sustain yourself. Absolutely.
Sure.
But the power rests in the individual, each individual, and together. When you get enough individuals together, there's a massive amount of power there, and you can
at the right time. But it has to be the window of opportunity. You see, if people did it today, today is not the time.
Right, it would fail massively, and you're absolutely right.
Look what happened in 1861, Joe. It was the same thing. The southern states were up against exactly the same thing from the Washington oppressive government, and anybody that studies history will be amazed at the similarity that's going on. And they dropped out and put an army against one another, and look what happened. The good guys lost.
Yep. Now...
Yep. You agree with that, Joe?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, let me say this. I was born and raised in the North, right? And to be quite honest with you, the South was always the I always... You see people flying the Confederate flag, and I was one of those guys that was always saying, "Hey, the war's over! Come on!" But now, after doing some research into it, I do understand what you're saying, and we are the South. We are the South right now, fighting against an oppressive North, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The thing is you're right in that there will be a window of opportunity. And when that window of opportunity comes, I think we'll know it. The problem that I have is I don't know if that window of opportunity is going to come before all hell breaks loose with the climate, with the earth changes that are happening. What do you think, Scott?
Well, knowing what I know is we may get into a spiritual battle, and that's what we're really in right now.
Right.
This is good versus evil of the highest levels, and I mean they've got all these churches separated, pointing fingers. They're in a mentality of, God's going to fly me out of here, so I'm not going to worry about it. Blase mentality. I have one of my subs right now up in Santa Cruz taking a survival training classes. Some of these subs are starting to, I'm going to go over to this Indio survival training and learn how to make it out there in the wild. And she's got 2 kids and a husband, and she's out there for a week. And she wants to learn and get ready, because in all reality, folks, if you never had that type of training, outdoor training and survival skills, and stuff hits your area, hey, and it will, anyone who's gone through life long enough knows that nothing's set in stone. Things change.
Right.
So to not have that skill in your pocket is stupid. I mean, get that knowledge in you. You'll be maximum for the groups that have to lean on your understanding, because there ain't going to be cell phones. There's not going to be other things. Just get it in your mind. Hey, even if I don't believe Scott, I don't believe any of these guys. Hey, you know what? That is good advice. Maybe I should have that kind of training under my belt. Because when everything went off in the past, look in the 1800s, you didn't have all this stuff, okay? How did they make it? You know what? It would be good to have those survival skills in my pocket in case everything went down. Information shock resistance.
Yep. Hey, Scott, what made you, or what gave you the inspiration to do your walkabout?
Well, I needed to show people, man. This isn't talk. There was multiple purposes, but they needed to say that, hey, you can get out on faith. Just point blank. Like I say, you want to prepare as it's happened already. So 200 days ago, okay, look it's happened. And now I'm out on the street going everywhere. So can you do this? Can you make it? Being with nothing but a backpack and the love of God to protect you and keep you through this thing. The answer is yes, and the proof is in the pudding.
Man, that's fantastic. And I'll tell you what, I do follow you a lot on YouTube, and I'm absolutely impressed. And it takes not only a strong faith, but it also takes some pretty large cojones to actually go out and do what you're doing, not knowing where you're going to end up the next day,
It's a trip.
I can only imagine. Now, what I want to put out to people, and I can't remember what days your shows are on. What days are your shows on?
Monday and Friday, 5 o'clock Pacific.
Okay, so 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, Monday and Friday. You can find Scott here on the Intel Hub News Network, and I encourage everybody to listen in because he's always got some good stuff to say and some very valuable information. And I want to key in on something that he just said, too. It's faith. There's only so many things that you can prepare for, folks, and after that, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. We, as human beings, do not put enough faith in our Creator. We just don't do it. And you have to realize that there are no possibilities. There's plenty of possibilities that you just can't plan for. Case in point, it's like I always bring up that, man, I've got 10,000 gallons of water. I got 3 years of food. Yeah, I'm already. Oh, I just died of a heart attack. Crap, guess that's not going to do me any good. Yeah, and that's just it. You don't know when your time's going to come, and you don't know, and you can't possibly prepare for every single instance. And in that case, you have to give it up. You just have to give it up. And if you don't, you're going to drive yourself mad. You're going to drive yourself mad trying to figure all this crap out. Isn't that right, Scott?
Yep. I mean, when you don't have a belief system, then a man who believes in nothing will fall for anything. And mankind has come to that point where they don't have a belief in anything, and now they're falling for everything.
That's right. What do you think? Do you think that it's that the downfall of society, and I mean downfall, I mean degradation, the immorality, all that stuff, do you think that's engineered to get people to get away from that, to make people as far, or get people as far away from the light as humanly possible?
You know, I was talking to a small group earlier on that. You know, you look at the husbands who and the wives. Okay, this one gal was going, yeah, this guy from Israel, he's 70 years old, and she's like 30 years or senior or junior, and he goes, oh yeah, he wanted to take me over there and pay my way and everything else, but she don't love the dude, so she'll forget it. And then the girl will find a guy that she does love, except he's not stable. Okay, nowadays you got two people, a man and a woman. The woman's looking more for security, but she's also looking for love. And a guy wants to be the breadwinner, and he's also looking for love. And they're not getting that connection anymore because of the oppressiveness of society, where at any time they could take away their job, load them down with debt, and then you have two wonderful, loving people who love each other. All of a sudden, their marriage falls apart because the money system in the household falls apart. It creates mass divorce rates, children that are missing one of their parents. So now they're suffering from neglect or deprivation, and that's deprived of something they should have had, but they didn't have. So that one's a real hard thing to put a thumb on, and it's a subconscious character attitude of neglect or deprivation. So they were deprived of something they should have had. So they end up feeling alone even when they're surrounded by people, and they don't know why they feel that way, and it's subconscious. You know, and once you start getting all these subconscious walls up, it starts to break down your ability to be successful in whatever you do, because you're setting up subconscious roadblocks. So, you know, they're breaking down the family. So what do they do for all these horny dudes out there? Well, let's give them porn medics, and, because they're going to be breaking up their families anyway.
Right.
And let's start giving them all these different thoughts. You start going down that rabbit hole, and all of a sudden they're getting into the next thing and the next thing, and it turns into an addiction, like drinking or doing drugs or workaholism or greed. All these different addictions. They get a little bit, and it turns into a way of life, and then all of a sudden they're in the throw up. And they keep going back to the throw up. And it was all orchestrated through this huge, continuous manipulating con of this world banking system, this old money that didn't care, that hides behind a piece of paper called incorporation, who Congress gave life to in 1917, and that piece of paper is an idol. They gave life to a piece of paper. It might as well be a golden calf, and people are bowing down and worshiping and serving that thing.
No, you're absolutely right. Griff, any closing thoughts?
No, I've enjoyed listening to Scott tonight. Scott, thank you for coming on. You've been a real interesting guest. I hope you come back.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love that King's Court thing. That was really funny.
John has a way with words. Let me just tell you.
Joe, let me mention one thing. I see our time is ticking down. I'll be fast. As Scott was talking, I thought about the video link I sent you some time ago, and what's going on there in California with the street festivals. I'm sure I know what Scott's answer would be on that, but can you present that hurriedly to Scott?
What's that now? I'm sorry, Griff?
The street festival, Folsom Street Festival in San Francisco.
Oh, good Lord.
The social.
Scott, I'll send you a link on YouTube, but just get ready. That's all I can say. I'm
not going to toss my cookies, am I?
Oh, probably. Yeah, absolutely. You'll toss your cookies. But basically, to make a long story short, just the blatant perversion that's going on as far as the